For those of you that don't know, we're in chapter 11. And just kind of bring us back to where we were. We reached the point where we're talking about Antiochus IV, Epiphanes. He was the one that we covered in different sessions, different chapters. He's that vile person that we see that was mentioned. Now we're reaching a point where it's going to break over, and it's no longer going to be talking about him. It's going to be talking about the man of sin that's going to come in the latter days at the end of time. But this guy is a type of that individual. So you can take some of the things here that are being said about him, and you can apply it. You know, it's a pattern that God has brought out that shows us how bad this man's going to be, or shows us partially how bad it's going to be. But anyway, it says in verse 21 of chapter 10 that he's going to be a vile person. It says, and also in verse 21, he said he's going to come in peaceably. He's going to obtain the kingdom by flattery. And also, in verse 23, it says he's going to become strong with small people. So that just kind of gives it before we get into the rest of it. Verse 24 says, he shall enter peaceably even upon the fattest places of the province. Of the province. And he shall do that which his fathers have not done, nor his father's fathers. He shall scatter among them the prey and spoil and riches. Yea, he shall forecast his devices against the strongholds even for a time. And he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south, that's Egypt, with a great army. And the king of the south, that's Egypt, shall be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army. But he shall not stand, for they shall forecast devices against him. Speaking of Antiochus Epiphanes. Yea, they that feed of the portion of his meat shall destroy him, and his army shall overflow, and many shall fall down slain. But the first thing that we have in this verse is that he's going to enter peacefully. And he's going to do something that his fathers or his fathers' fathers have not done. And we're still talking about Antiochus IV here now. What he did was he used money that he confiscated from all around his kingdom and everything. And instead of fighting, instead of going out and just conquering somebody, he began to buy them off. There was a lot of under the table stuff was started to going on. Remember now that Antiochus IV was not really the rightful guy that was supposed to be on the throne. His brother's son was supposed to be the one whose name was Demetrius, but remember his brother had traded his son for Antiochus IV's freedom. And the way he got in was he went in into the territory that was supposed to be Demetrius' inheritance. His brother was assassinated in Greece, and so he was supposed to. The son was supposed to be the one to go to the throne, but he went in saying, "Okay, I'm just here representing him until he had secured the kingdom for himself." So that's the type of individual he was. So, but what it's talking about here, he's going to do something that his fathers had not done, is that he bought off everybody. He used the treasures of Judea and the countryside. And it says, and he shall stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south. And what happened here was in 170 BC, a couple of guys advised Ptolemy the Sixth said, what you need to do is you need to go back and recover Syria. He had lost Syria to Antiochus before, and they advised him that he needed to go back and take Syria again. Well, Antiochus IV, he heard about it, and so he gets this army all together. Now remember, Ptolemy the Sixth, that's his nephew. That's his sister's son. That's ruler in Egypt. In fact, he had another nephew that was out. Ptolemy the Sixth then saw his uncle coming in with this huge military deal, and so he went into negotiations, and they made peace. And I'm going to tell you, when we get a little bit, the next page is, I don't know why, but it just reminded me kind of things that are going on in our country. That's going to get there. But anyway, now in Alexander, remember I said that he had another nephew down there, which was Ptolemy the Eighth, Euergetes. They made him king. And so now Egypt is divided, and that's one thing that weakened Egypt at that time, because it was divided between these two brothers, the sons of Cleopatra, who was Antiochus IV's sister. Then it says here, right, and both these kings' hearts shall be to do mischief, and they shall speak lies at one table, but it shall not prosper. For yet the end shall be at the time appointed. And I have to stop here. Notice what in the context of this chapter 11, there's several times, I think it's 3 or 4 times, it speaks about the time appointed, a time that to give us an indication that God has a time set in all of this. He's got his time set. Then it says, then shall he return into his land with great riches, and his heart shall be against the holy covenant, and he shall do exploits and return to his own land. So, talking about both of these kings, both those in Egypt and Antiochus IV, they made all sorts of agreements, I don't know which brother was Republican and which brother was Democrat. And I don't know which was independent, but things were going on now. And look, it says, and they shall speak lies at one table, and neither side meant to keep their promises. Have you listened to the political rhetoric that goes on?
Sorry to say, yes.
And you sit there and you think, you think, how in the world are they going to be able to do that? To do what they say?
Yeah.
I mean, they might if it was a dictatorship, but I mean, just say you think about it, how in the world is it going to, Well, the political situation in the land here was that they shall speak lies at one table, but neither of them meant what they were agreeing to. And then it says, his heart shall be against the holy covenant. What we're talking about there is that he sees the wealth that is in Judea, in the temple. That temple has been ransacked and robbed so many times over in history that it's hard to count. Just think about that. You had the menorah in there out of solid gold. You had the altar of incense with gold, the table of showbread, gold. Just that, all kinds of treasures in there. Plus, they had in the temple, they had a treasury, and they would put all of all of kinds of treasures into that place. That's kind of like, that was kind of the bank of the Judean people. Well, he sees all of this wealth there, and so he goes after it. And the way he does it is that he finds people that are sympathetic to his ideas, you know. He's a progressive. He finds people that are simple. What he wants to do is he wants to bring in Greek mythology into the land as the religion. That's what Antiochus, that was what he promoted more than anything else, was he wanted to get rid of the Jewish religion. So the thing to do is find people that were Jews that were on his side. So that's what he did. He found people and so he installed them in high positions. And then it says in verse 29, and at that time, at the time appointed, he shall return. It seems all of this is on a schedule, and come toward the south. But it shall not be as former. In other words, last time we saw him come to the south, he met his nephews, they come to an agreement. But this is going to be different. He's talking about that, it jumps to a few years ahead, and it's a whole different ball of wax. And time appointed, he shall return and come toward the south, but it shall not be as former or as the latter. For the ships of Chittim shall come against him. Therefore he shall be grieved and return and have indignation against the holy covenant. And by the way, when he talks about holy covenant, what he's talking about is the Jew religion, the Jewish religion. So shall he do. He shall even return and have intelligence with them that forsake the holy covenant. He's talking about those guys the Jews that sell out, that say, yeah, we like to have Greek religion, you know. It make us any difference, you know. An arm shall stand on his part, and they shall pollute the sanctuary of strength, and shall take away the daily sacrifice, and they shall place the abomination that maketh desolate. And we're still talking about Antiochus Epiphanes. We're still talking about him at this point. However, we're beginning to, prophetically, we're beginning to shift to another area. You know, at a time appointed he shall return. So that when this is a time established by God, he's in control of all these events, and he's in control of what's going on in our country too. You know, I might add. I just hope that he does what I want him to do. Anyway, the agreements between the children of Cleopatra, that was those two, Ptolemy the VIII and Ptolemy the VI, they started ruling together, and Antiochus decided he was going to invade again. But things were different this time because it makes a statement, the ships of Chittim. Now, we don't know. We know that this is referring to Cyprus, or we know the islands there. The only thing is we have trouble tying it into who it actually is that meet them down there. So evidently there's a way that evidently Rome had at this time had taken Cyprus and some of the islands, because Rome is beginning to come to power. I mean, really, really come to power. Because really, it is Rome that meets him down there. The word there is kitty. So it's a little kitty. Kitty met him. That's what it's, the ships of Kitty. And so, but the Septuagint, according to the authorities, the Septuagint translates the word as Romans, because that's actually who it was. Now, the Septuagint was written about 300 BC, and so they're writing after they're doing their translation after the fact, so they know that it's wrong. that made him that. So Antiochus IV, he goes against Egypt. The only thing he didn't expect was for the Romans to meet him down there. And what these two brothers had done is they had contacted Rome and asked for assistance because they felt like that they were going to be invaded, so they had contacted Rome and they asked Rome to intervene. Well, the Roman consul Burroughs, he met Antiochus IV down there, and I always thought he just drew a line in the sand. I mean, he said, "Don't you step over here. If you come over here, we're going to intervene." But one history commentary says that he drew a line around Antiochus, and he said, "Before you make a decision, if you're going to attack Egypt, you tell us, and we'll be here. We'll meet you. Or if you're going to, before you step out of that circle, you decide what you're going to do." Of course, now remember, this guy had spent 14 years in Rome. Remember, he had been handed over by his father as a what do you call it?
Political prisoner?
Huh?
Political prisoner?
Yeah. When his father lost the battle in Greece, and the Romans gonna let him keep his territory, but he had to give his son up as security and he spent 14 years in Rome, so he knew the power and the strength of Rome. So he decides he doesn't want to take Rome on. That's when trouble starts. He goes back to his kingdom, and he gets what he's thinking now. If I can get Judea, if I can get it all under Greek religion, and make it part of Greece, I have a buffer between Rome in Egypt, and so that's what he sets out to do. And that's when things really get bad in Israel, in Judea, because he says he's against the Holy Covenant. So he'd been humiliated by the Romans, and he goes back, and that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to destroy the Jewish faith. And it says, "And have intelligence with them that forsake the Holy Covenant." He finds Jews that are willing to go along with it. So in 167 BC, he dispatches troops to Jerusalem, to take Jerusalem. Here's the thing. He had allies, Jews in Jerusalem, and when his troops arrived, they just opened the doors. They opened the doors to the walls of Jerusalem and let his troops in. When he gets in there, he takes the city and he kills a lot of people. I think that Josephus, puts it into thousands. These are people that are object to and so later on he even kills his friends. These people that let him in later on, but not at this point. And the Jews were compelled under penalty of death to depart from the laws of the fathers and cease living by the laws of God. They were forbidden. That all the Torahs were supposed to be burned and destroyed. Circumcision was outlawed. They would kill a mother and her baby if they caught her circumcising her child. In fact, Josephus even cites some instances of that. So he outlaws the holy. He takes everything out of the temple, and he sets up a statue there of Jupiter, and that statue he has made, it looks like him. Remember in Revelation, all this is going to happen in a way. It's happening again in the end day. Because remember, the man of sin and the false prophet, they're all going to put an image up, and you're going to be commanded to worship. And that's what was going on here. The abomination of desolation, and that's what is described here. In fact, he went on to command that in all of the cities and villages that they have an altar to Jupiter, to the gods of Greek gods, and that they offer pigs as an offering to Jupiter. And also they did it on the altar at the temple. Verse 32 says, "And such as do wickedly against the covenant shall he corrupt with flatteries. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits." I was listening to a preacher this morning who quoted this. What is Jensen?
Jensen Franklin.
Yeah.
Yes.
He quoted this one verse, or the last part of it. People that know their God. People that know their God shall be strong and do exploits. And it had special meaning this morning as he mentioned that, in our day and time, the people that know their God, they're going to stand. People that know their God, they're going to keep on keeping on. I used to work with an engineer, electrical engineer. He and I were overseas several times together. And he used to had a favorite saying every time something kind of got messed up or going wrong, he'd say, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
That's right. That's right.
And have you ever noticed when they start putting pressure on believers that more believers start coming in,
That's right.
that the church grows, Remember the book of Acts and how that the church took off when persecution got great? Well, I'm not predicting anything. I'm just saying I just kind of like that verse there. But the people that do know their God shall be strong and do exploits. Do you remember that in Psalms 91, verse 14, that it says that all of the things that are promised there are promised to those that know his name? Verse 9 gives a because to, and then verse 14 gives a because to. But I like what it says, because in verse 14, because they know my name. And it's not just a word, it's not just this thing, a word like Jehovah, or that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about knowing what he does, who he is, all that he can do, and everything. It's knowing him and his personality and his character and everything. We know our God, Not anything he can't do, not anything not anything he won't intervene for in our lives. But that was that. Anyway, and they that understand among the people shall instruct many. See? Yet they shall fall by the sword and by the flame, by captivity, by spoil, many days. Now when they shall fall, they shall be holpen with a little help. But many shall cleave to them with flatteries. And some of them of understanding shall fall to try them and to purge and to make them white, even to the time of the end, because it is yet for an appointed time. We're beginning to see the transition. Now we're beginning to move away from Antiochus, because now we're talking about till the end. And I don't want to go back to Revelation, but it's beginning to move in this passage of Scripture. They who do wickedly temple will become the last test for you. And those who align themselves with Antiochus showed their wickedness by just joining in and turning in their brethren, and all kinds of bad things were going on, because he had outlawed the Torah. So, I mean, they began to report on one another and things like that, that so-and-so, I saw him with a scroll, I saw him reading his Bible, or I heard him say something about Yahweh or God, that kind of stuff going on. But all of that caused the people that know their God, it caused them to make a stand in the days of Antiochus. Mattathias, he had 5 sons, and they were known as the Maccabees, the Maccabeans. And they rebelled. In fact, Antiochus sent a representative to Mattathias' house, telling him, he was a priest, Mattathias he was a priest, and he sent a representative to his house and telling him, we want you to destroy the Torah, and there will be no more sacrifices to God, and laying down the law to him at his house, he lived in a village outside of Jerusalem, or in a town outside, and Mattathias killed him. This ain't gonna happen. And he just killed the messenger. And he and his 5 sons then fled into the mountains. And just like David, when David fled from Saul, there was a lot of people that joined him, But anyway, and then guerrilla warfare began. After a number of years, Mattathias, he died. His sons took up the battle, and after a number of years, they took the temple back. And that's what the celebration that the Jews celebrate in December, usually round about the time of Christmas, is Hanukkah. And that's what it celebrates, is when the Maccabees took Jerusalem, cleansed the temple, and you've seen the 9-shaft menorah, where you have 4 on the side, 1 in the center. That's not like the menorah that was in the temple, because it only had 7, one in the center and 3 on the side. And its significance is that when the Maccabees took the temple back, they only had enough of the sanctified oil for 1 day to burn the menorah. So, and it takes a while for them to develop the oil by scripture that you use in the menorah, and they only use that portion that was supposed to only last for a day, but it lasted 8 days. All 8 days of the celebration and the cleansing of the temple and so forth. And that's what goes along with the Hanukkah. That's what it's all about, is the rededication of it. In fact, the matter is, I was going to say something else. People who understand, this draws a contrast between the 2 groups of people. Mentioned that. Even to the end of time, this line does not stop with the Maccabees. It goes right on into the end of time. There's something highly significant about this chapter here, that God is taking this and drawing this into that first image that Nebuchadnezzar saw in his dream, and it going right toward the foot, where this, of that image, and this is where it begins to shift. And just like Antiochus desecrated the temple, the the end time ruler, he will desecrate the temple of it. So he's a picture of a few. Let me tell you something a little about it. When the Maccabees took the temple, took the land back, when they did, Antiochus IV was in Elam, or Persia, at that time. And what he was doing, he was trying to ransack the temples in Persia. He was trying to, that's what he was doing. But when he got there, everybody in Persia was armed. He wasn't expecting that. Everybody had guns. Or not guns, but they had weapons, you know. I guess I associated that to this business about taking our guns away, you know. But anyway, when he got there, they all had swords and spears and everything, and shields and everything it took to fight with. And he got beat. And about the time that he was retreating out of Elam, he got word that the Maccabees had taken the temple. Josephus says that he went crazy. You know, it's reported that he began to tell all of his troops as they began to withdraw, "We're going back to Jerusalem. We're going to turn that into a Jewish graveyard." But he began to have physical problems. And they say, you remember how Herod the Great died? They say that he died down in Jericho in 4 BC. And they said he died, they thought he had some kind of organ failure that had turned into gangrene, but there were worms present and a stench that was hard to take. You remember Antiochus? You remember Herod Antipas in your Bible that was at Caesarea, and he made this speech, you know, and his robes and everything, and the people said, "Whoa, that's the voice of God," you know. And the Bible says that he fell down and worms ate him. You know? It seems like, well, Antiochus on his way back in his chariot, he got to smelling so bad because of the worms and the stench that his army couldn't even march close to him. They couldn't even come around him. He smelled so bad. And he died on the way back, you know. And with that, I'll stop.